So how's
Right?
your dog?
That's a whole nightmare right now.
Oh
He's in
no.
the yeah, he's in the car sedated, and I have the other dog with me, and all
Oh my,
kinds of drama.
oh my
Trying to
God.
drive back to Frederick.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Well, when you're not in the middle of all of this, you'll have to tell me what happened.
yeah, well,
So, Christina, are you doing the meeting today?
Oh no, Gabrielle's coming.
Oh, okay.
But next month she'll be out, so I will have to do planning commission.
All right.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Good.
I mean, it'll be, a little nervous for your first time,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
But
absolutely.
I've, presented in front of commissions and stuff, so I think it'll be okay.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
I understand, Jen.
Christina Martinkowski, Gabrielle told me you have to leave, so we can go ahead and get started with the Franklin Street HPO case if
Excellent.
you're ready.
Yeah, and I'm going to kick off just the first little bit, kind of as
Oh, okay.
a programming note. The Historic Preservation Overlay is an application of the Historic Preservation Commission, as we've discussed in the past. However, we have property owners often, who are interested because it impacts their property, and we generally give them a little bit more deference when it comes to public comment and things because it impacts them immediately. So in this case, we received a request from an attorney who's just been brought on board from the property owner to work with the property owner to ask for more time. They are interested. They've just been hired by their client, the property owner, and wants more time to understand the logistics of everything so they can be able to represent them. The code requires that the Planning Commission hold a meeting within 45 days of receiving the Historic
Right.
Preservation Commission's application. We have scheduled it. We have we are intending to hold it. However, we did advise the applicant that we would try to meet both the spirit and intent of the law, but also recognizing that we want the owner to be able to participate fully and awarely. There's no intent to not allow them to have a role in this process, even though it is the HPC's application. So what we were going to recommend to you is that the Planning Commission make a motion, if you're amenable, make a motion at the beginning of the meeting to bring this item up to the beginning of the meeting.
Okay.
To discuss, to allow Christina to give a brief overview, allow the applicant or the property owner to voice their requests to you, take any additional public comment if it's there, and then vote on whether, assuming his request, the attorney's request is to continue it, whether the Planning Commission would like to defer the case to next month. If the commission does not want to vote to continue it, if you bump it up front and you say, you know what, we want to hear this, it's too compelling, the recommendation we would make to you is that we don't then have that conversation immediately, but that it goes back to its normal place on the agenda, which is at the end. The concern we have, obviously, is it's a very heavy agenda, and if the Planning Commission is inclined to want to, hear the attorneys and the property owners' request for the continuance, that we do it at the beginning of the meeting and not have them sit there for 5-6 hours and
Okay.
or any other public comment just for the meeting, just for this item, and then continue it at the end. But we also don't want you to bump up the discussion of the item if you want to hear it to the
Right.
beginning, because that's not fair either. So it would be a motion to move it up to the beginning, adjust the agenda to add it to the beginning. We'll share this presentation. Christine will provide some comments on the application. Open for public comment. The attorney and the property owner are part of that public comment. Allow them to express what they want to you. Any other public comment we should take if someone is there. And then if the Planning Commission is not inclined to want to continue it, we'll move it back to the end of the agenda. We thought that was the most appropriate and reasonable way to both meet the code and handle the request in the context of such a heavy agenda.
Okay, and that will meet the requirements of the code as far as scheduling it and getting it scheduled within the 45 days.
Yes. We believe that will not cause any adverse impacts to the property owner or the application itself, and is the most reasonable. If the Planning Commission had, there's nothing that precludes you from continuing the item, right? If you discuss it, we get to the item at 10 o'clock at night, and the Planning Commission's caught up in good discussion on it and wants more information, you could continue it.
And is there any reason to not just continue it? Does that? Does that not meet the spirit of the addressing it within 45 days?
So because it's the HPC's application, the attorney can't request to continue it. Like a member of the public couldn't come in and request to continue something.
Right, but the city could. I mean,
Right, but it's also the HPC's application, not necessarily ours. So I think that it's kind of a unique scenario where, you know, the intent is to get this on the agenda in the 45 days. We want to move forward with that intent. And you have kind of this third party that's, you know, inherently part of the case, wanting to make that request.
I do have just one other just thing to put as part of your thought process, Joan,
Okay.
is this is not necessarily a unique request. I can think of other similar cases, other demolition review applications that resulted in a zoning map amendment where as it goes through the process, the property owner or the representative asked for a bit of a pause. This happened at the Baylor Conley Farm, on Baldwin's Lane. This happened at 401 Linden Avenue for the Cure Cottage. And there was another one. There was another one, but I can't recall it, of course, right now. But this has, yes, that was Lisa's case. Maybe that's why it's a little bit more vague.
Mhm.
So this has happened before. So we're not, I think we're not asking for anything that has not. This is that, you know, doesn't have a little bit of precedence.
okay. Dorothy, any questions? I mean, before we get to the,
Yes. Yeah, just real quickly, I'm still not hearing why the HPC can't request a continuance. That's, you know, since it's their application, I'm not understanding why they can't request that.
Well, one, the HPC is not going to meet in time to make any action.
Right, they can't, yeah, and they can't, no one on that commission can act independently. They have to
Gotcha.
act as a group, like you guys would have to.
Plus, we do have this, you know, I want to move forward with this, right? Like, right?
Mhm.
We put a lot of effort and jumped through a lot of, you know, scheduling limitations to get us to this point. But these requests do pop up and, you know, certainly open to accommodating that.
Okay, so that's why we're kind of going through a high level review discussion, and then I guess the PC will make its determination as to whether or not we should continue in order for the applicant and the applicant's attorney to be more engaged in the process, correct?
Yes, I think
Correct.
that's a good summary.
Mhm.
there,
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I was just going to remind everybody, Dorothy's on the phone, so she can't see you all nodding your head.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think Elaine is back yet. So, okay. So Christina, is there anything else about the file or the staff report that we need to know?
Well, you know, if you recall when we met last month, the Historic Preservation Commission did not meet yet to make any determinations. And
Oh,
so
right.
I do want to go over what their findings were, and
Okay.
then just real high level kind of other considerations that the Planning Commission will need to take into consideration that the Historic Preservation Commission did not. So the Historic Preservation Commission met June 17th, and they found unanimously, which right now we have 5 commission members, so 5-0, that the property met that 50-year requirement, that it possessed sufficient historic integrity, and met the areas, 3 areas of significance. Now, I don't know if you may or may not recall that at the Planning Commission workshop last month, we had I previously discussed 2 of those. At the hearing, one other area of significance was identified and added as part of the application per direction from the Historic Preservation Commission. So I just want to do real high level of those 3 criteria.
Okay.
One, per section 423D3A, the site is associated with events that have made a significant contribution to the broad patterns of history, including those that exemplify the heritage of the city. This standard is created directly from the National Park Service standards. This is not unique or unusual. This is what historic preservation is used to identify what properties are significant or not. St. Timothy's Chapel is significant as a mission chapel of the All Saints Parish church, which administered to the spiritual needs of the working class community that grew alongside the industries of the east side of Frederick, beginning in the late 19th century and accelerating through the first half of the 20th century. Now, at the HPC hearing, we had a really interesting conversation about this criteria. We talked about early suburban development and how St. Timothy's Chapel is really a wonderful and unique property that demonstrates how institutions and churches responded to the suburban development by creating smaller scale buildings to service the emerging neighborhoods that were being created outside the city center. They didn't really have we talked about the character defining features of those sites. They still didn't have parking lots yet because it predated the automobile. They were smaller in scale, but had traditional designs. So for those reasons, the commission found that to be a really intriguing argument to support that designation criteria. Secondly, another one that we discussed at PC workshop last month is 423D3DI. The site exhibits significance in design or construction by embodying the distinctive characteristics of a type, period, method, or of construction, including characteristics that particularly are associated with the city. Long and short, what this means is the architecture and the building construction interesting, and the commission did find that it did meet this standard. The site is a good example of an early 20th century ecclesiastical English Gothic church building. The adaptation of the English Gothic architecture for St. Timothy's Chapel speaks to the popularity of this type of architecture in the Episcopal Church, whose history is closely associated and tied to the Church of England and traditional English ecclesiastic architecture. In fact, the All Saints Church, located at 106 West Church Street, right across from City Hall, is designed in the Gothic style by noted architect Richard Upjohn. This, what we see here at St. Timothy's Church, has a simple form and utilitarian design. It's really representative of early suburban church construction from the first quarter of the 20th century. It has a modest scale and utilitarian design that is just paired with this traditional Gothic styling, which the commission found was a really strong argument for that to meet the designation criteria. The new one is for section 423D3B. The site is associated with the lives of persons significant to the history of the city. And I will say that I did not include this initially in the application because I really followed the Maryland inventory form that was approved and accepted by the Maryland Historic Trust, and it's on their state inventory. I followed basically what their findings were, but I do think that the commission was correct and fair in making this determination. I know that the writer who did the form was not local, and so when he heard that Lloyd, when they wrote that Lloyd Kohler wrote this, built this building, they probably didn't make the connection of how important Lloyd Kohler was to the city of Frederick. He was not only just a prominent citizen and builder, but he was the mayor of the city of Frederick and a very influential one. Kohler served as mayor for 22 years, and during that tenure, the city doubled in size and population. He led several major building initiatives, including the foundation of Baker Park and the Federal Municipal Airport. Kohler Lake, which should be of no surprise, was named in his honor in 1940. In his capacity of a local builder, he served as the director of the Domestic Building Association with the Frederick Lodge. He is responsible for many landmark buildings, including the Tally Ruck Center on Ben Street, the Glass Factory, which is one of my favorite buildings on East 4th Street, and the Barbara Frenchy House on Patrick Street, which I love because I love the articles associated with his building and the care he took in terms of historic preservation and renovation work. It's really interesting. Also, the YMCA building, which is now demolished, that was on West Church Street. There's a great marker there. So Lloyd Kohler is also responsible for many churches, schools, and banks, and of course the St. Timothy's Chapel, which he completed in January 2024. So the commission reviewed these criterias. They considered the appropriate boundaries using the National Park Service standards and integrity standards, and ultimately found this property to be eligible. And it's making its recommendation to the Planning Commission. The HPC also just considered its other designations. Of course, the property is inventoried with the state 2 times, which is noteworthy, right? It's individually designated on the state inventory all by itself, but it's also a contributing resource for the Schleisville Historic District. So that's also of interest. So that's HPC's review and their findings. But the Planning Commission has other considerations that the HPC did not even talk about or consider. So I want to quickly go over those with you. I want to note, and something that I didn't really address in the last workshop, is that the 2020 Comprehensive Plan incorporates by reference the Maryland Inventory of Historic Properties. So as being properties that we want to designate and protect. And so with this building being listed not once, but twice, which is pretty special, we are fulfilling what the comprehensive plan is really encouraging good planning efforts to do. Also, the future land map of the 2020 comprehensive plan designates the property as open space, which is intended for public and private lands and to facilitate the purposes of conservation, open space, and recreation. Many of the city's recreational spaces contain historic structures previously used for cultural purposes. And so there's nothing unusual or unique in this site. So this is consistent with the institutional zoning that is currently on the property, which is also intended to provide for public and private nonprofit owned areas where the public is invited to congregate. Applying the historic preservation overlay in this site protects the existing historic nature of the structure and lends itself further to the goals of the future land use map and the comprehensive plan, which encourages the following 3 policies. Policy 1, to support the preservation of sites, structures, and districts of historical, archaeological, cultural, and architectural significance. HPC Policy 2, to ensure the impacts of historic resources are considered in planning and development decision making. And of course, HP Policy 7, to maintain a balance between economic growth and historic preservation in order to achieve shared objectives. Other than that, I didn't find any other planning issues specific to the historic preservation overlay. My recommendation is for the Planning Commission to support its designation.
Great, thank you. Dorothy, any questions? I don't think we've got Elaine back yet. And Dorothy may be struggling with traffic.
Yep, I'm back.
I don't have anything else to add. I'm good.
Okay, thanks. Elaine, did you hear much?
I did.
Okay, do you have
Yep,
any
I did.
questions?
I do not have any questions. Thank you.
All right, that sounds good then. We'll see you on Monday night.
You guys are lovely to work with. Thank you for so much for accommodating me today.
Yep, no problem. Take care. Have a good weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right, so let's go back to the Aldi parking lot and why it's on the consent agenda.
Absolutely. So they have addressed all of their comments. There are no outstanding conditions of approval that we have to recommend, so we can put those types of items on the consent agenda. We had added to the staff report some additional information from the workshop regarding the parking calculation and how we look at the addition of new parking and that not generating a demand for any new parking because there's no building constructed. We added some additional information about the landscaping buffers that were previously provided. And so we don't have any other comments at this point. So with the consent agenda, you'll announce it at the beginning. If there's no one in the public who wants to have it removed from the consent agenda, or if none of the commission members want to remove it from the consent agenda, you just vote on it by essentially reading it out loud, taking a motion, and being done with it.
All right. Dorothy, any questions for Gabrielle?
None, thank you.
Thank you. Elaine? Any questions? Let's go again. All right. Sounds good. So our next item is the continuance for the MU text amendment.
There we go. Thank you so much. So the applicant is interested in trying to build some additional responses to the feedback that had been received both from the Planning Commission and the public at the last meeting. I believe their intent is to schedule a meeting because this text amendment, unlike a lot of text amendments, really is, for an immediate localized interest. I think they wanted to take the opportunity to try to discuss more with the community, the background and concepts that they've been looking at and what has prompted them to make this request. So they're doing some additional outreach, asked for continuance to our August meeting. I forget the date, probably have it on there. That's the August 11th Planning Commission meeting. And
Okay.
that at that time, that would be a recommendation to the city council again.
Okay. All right. Elaine, any questions? She's there. Dorothy, do you have any questions?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, I'll check back with Elaine if she comes back again. But in the meantime, let's move on to the fence modification on East 2nd Street.
Yeah, so this fence modification is just so that way, as we discussed at the workshop, so they can put a fence on top of the retaining wall there. HPC did recommend that they keep it at 6 foot maximum all the way across. There was a small portion where it eked up maybe 2 inches. I have since talked to the applicant and he is totally fine with meeting that standard. There was something that he could move to make it work. So outside of that, it's the same as presented at workshop.
Okay, so there's nothing new at all?
No, ma'am.
All right. Dorothy, any questions?
Yes, real quickly, and we may have discussed this and I just can't remember it. When we say 6 foot, are we saying the fence is going to be 6 feet on top of the what's that called? Structure.
The retaining wall?
The retaining wall,
No.
I think what my question is it going to be 6 feet total
No.
with the retaining wall? Okay.
Yeah, it's 6 feet total with the retaining wall and the fence. The fence itself is about 37 inches tall.
Gotcha. Okay, that's
Yeah.
what I was trying to confirm.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. Elaine, you there? Any questions? Not hearing anything. All right. I think we're good on that one then. Let's move on to the Frederick Health Master Plan.
Nothing's changed. We had to continue it for lack of quorum last month. So I don't have anything to add.
So there's literally, this is exactly the same packet that was posted a month ago.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yep.
I thought so, but I just wanted to be sure.
Yeah.
Dorothy and Elaine, has anything come up since last month?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, this is Dorothy. So I did have a question for Gabrielle, and I don't have my notes in front of me. I apologize, but I did have a question about the city code 4-14. I know that, I think off the top of my head, it mentions something about adequacy based on the I don't know the word is discernment, but based on the planning commission's determination. And I forget what the language that was used.
Oh, Jesus, sorry.
I'm sorry?
Yeah. I am in the range. I'm in so close to Pennsylvania. That was a Pennsylvania emergency alert. I'm up in Smithsburg today, and we're close to Pennsylvania. Boy, I don't know what that, I didn't look at it, but.
All right.
Sorry.
So, yeah. So I was trying to determine, it said it was at the discretion of the planning commission whether there was road adequacy, right? That's 4-14. But it also mentioned some other things that I wanted Gabrielle to talk to. One was, and I'm sorry, I don't have my notes in front of me, but one was about waiting. you know, and then there were some other things. Can you talk some more about that, Gabrielle?
Sure. So section 414, Dorothy's referring to is the road subsection of chapter 4, which is the adequate public facilities ordinance. Section 414 allows the planning commission to find in its sole discretion that existing roads and intersections are adequate if adequacy cannot be achieved without alteration or removal of structures, and the developer has incorporated as much mitigation as reasonably possible. So there is a standard of adequacy level of service. Sharon, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sorry, D. There are standards.
D. Yeah, letter D.
There,
sorry.
There are so the code defines what is adequacy by level of standard, level of service. If a project can't meet that because of existing structures and the need to remove them, and has provided as much mitigation as possible. So we have an intersection that has constraints that can't be widened. We have existing buildings or existing other improvements. And I think one of the examples out on the Monocacy River, right? Like you have a bridge and you can't expand it further. The Planning Commission can otherwise find it to be adequate, is what that's allowing. So it's saying this is the standard of, you know, X. And if you can't meet the standard of X because of these things, then the Planning Commission can still determine it's adequate.
Right,
in those
right,
situations.
Gabrielle, thank you for that. But past that, I think when I read further down, there were some other things. And one was, I think, under a subtitle waiting, and I don't know if that's correct. I just 5-10 minutes from home, so I don't have it in front of me, but it talks about some other things like when you read past that section, there's more. I think one section speaks to waiting, and then there was something else, and I just wanted to hear more about that. So I don't know if you see that.
Sure. So maybe you're thinking about the mitigation options. So
yes, that's the title. Thank you. Yes, yeah. That's it.
So the waiting provision applies to schools essentially, because when we run a school test, we run it for so many years, and we look at based on the number of units. We run the school test. Frederick County Public Schools crunches the numbers for us and gives us the result. And if the projects don't meet the standards of adequacy, they're the school's over capacity, or it's over capacity by more than 120% in the first year after accounting for the projects in the CIP and the actual enrollment, then your only choice is to wait 5 years. So if you can't pay the school mitigation fee and the schools are overcrowded, your option is either to propose an improvement that would bring about adequacy. So you could propose to build a school or build a new wing to a school or whatever would make it adequate. We've never had anybody propose to do that. Or you can wait for 5 years. So we would retest you every year for school capacity. And at the end of the 5th year of testing, if the school's still over capacity, you would go forward regardless. You have the option always to elect. We have had a development project, the Cadeland project, had failed, but they had the option to pay the school mitigation fee. But they knew in their programming and their marketing and all their good stuff that they weren't moving forward for 5 years anyway. So they said, we'll just hold because of whatever private contractual things were going on. So you can elect that option. So waiting really only applies to the school provisions, the roads over time, you know, you don't have an option to wait out road adequacy. The other options to mitigate when we find a failing situation are to enter into a mitigation agreement which could phase the improvements you make, like over the lifeline of a long project, like something like Wren Corridor, where this development's coming online over a period of time. We don't make them pay for basically bond and prepare plans to construct everything all at one time. We allow that to be phased out. The standard requirement for things like water line, sewer line, and road capacity is generally that before you can get a final certificate of approval, so before you can get a building permit, any improvement that you needed to construct, you would have entered into a public works agreement with the city and posted a bond for that improvement. So we're holder a surety. We have a letter of credit. We have a bond. You have approved plans, and you've entered into the agreement to do them. And then we'll give you your final certificate, and then you can get a building permit. Or in the case of roads, we have it happen that terms of mitigation may also be contributions to a project. We want a $500,000 contribution towards a larger improvement. So that money would also have to be collected before a final certificate, unless it were subject to this mitigation agreement that would spread it out over a period of time. I think those are the primary mitigation measures. So, but in this case, right, so you might find that the applicant can't bring about true adequacy, that they can't meet the level of standard that the code says you need to meet. They may still have mitigation to contribute, either in a payment towards it or maybe a smaller improvement, but it doesn't mean that that brought about full technical adequacy. And that's why they have to ask for the commission to find that as much mitigation as possible is provided, they're doing as much as they can, and that there's a obstruction precluding them to be able to bring about that full improvement.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. And the options that you brought up, which were, what was it? The mitigation plan or an agreement or contribution still wouldn't really make it enough adequacy, based on the standard. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
Okay. My other question is, I looked at the actions, and I guess my question is, I noticed that the master plan, was it the master plan? I think it was, action was last. And I'm just trying to understand, like, wouldn't that be the first action? Only because if there is a vote in terms of not approving the master plan, or I should say, maybe not the master plan, maybe not approving the road adequacy. I think it was two of them, like the master plan and the road adequacy. I guess for me, I was just like, well, does it really matter if what you vote on in regards to the rest of the actions? If, let's just say, you decide that night, that the road adequacy, you can't vote for it, which I guess what I'm trying to understand is, doesn't one impact the other? It doesn't matter the first 4 or 5 actions if adequacy impacts the whole thing, and if adequacy impacts the master plan. Does that make sense? Can you approve adequacy? Can you disapprove adequacy and still approve the master plan?
You can,
I don't think.
Yeah, the finding of adequacy is really kind of tangled up with the concept of the provisional certificate. So in order to get to the planning commission, we have to have issued a provisional certificate. And what that means is that for any one of the facilities, we found that let me start over again. Forget what I said. In order to have a plan in front of you, we have to have either issued a full certificate, meaning that all of the infrastructure is adequate. We looked at it all, everything's good, you don't need mitigation. Or we have to issue a provisional certificate, meaning that not everything's good. There are some things failing. You've told us what those failing things are. We've said, okay, we agree to how you're proposing to fix them. And then we issue a provisional certificate. And that provisional means that we recognize it's inadequate. a mitigation plan, how you're going to fix it, has been proposed and approved. So in order to kind of validate the provisional certificate that we've issued thus far, to get it this far to the planning commission meeting, you have to find that the terms of that, you have to find that those things are adequate based on the mitigation, or that provisional certificate is kind of no longer valid, and then the whole plan's not really appropriately before you, right? So those kinds of, they're kind of tangled up together, and process wise, it's weird because we do all the work of going, well, we're going to issue you this provisional certificate, but it's kind of predicated on the fact that you guys are going to find these findings of adequacy. If you didn't find the adequacy, make the adequacy findings, that provisional certificate's kind of
null and void.
Yeah, kind of out the window, right? Like
Yeah.
the terms of it were kind of based on the fact that we recognized you can't bring about full adequacy. So these are the mitigation things you're proposing. And if you guys don't find that adequacy, it's kind of out the window. So the master plan itself can't be acted on,
Right.
because you don't have certificates of adequacy.
Right. And maybe this is just splitting hairs. That's why I was, scratching my head wondering, why would those two actions be last and not first? Because even if you say that you agreed with all the other actions, it's out the window if the last two most important ones don't jive. Does that make sense? That's why I would think they would be first and not last. Because it doesn't really, the others don't really matter. I mean, they matter, but you know what I mean. They're not going to go if the last two, don't go. But that was just my thought on that. But
and it's not. I think that all of the other, so the master plan that's in front of you is, like in this case, you've got a lot of mixed use conditional uses, right? The master plan that's in front of you is saying, this is what this plan's going to be, and it might have all of these things. So if you don't approve a mixed use conditional use of this or mixed use conditional of that, you could still vote on the master plan, but one of your conditions of the master plan would have to be, remove all references to the heliport or remove all references to X, Y, and Z. So your master plan conditions would reflect the failure to act on a certain component, so that the applicant could still walk away with an end result, whether they like it or not. So they kind of do build the other, like a modification to a road is part of that master plan. So we want you to think about that, and whether you like that, and if you don't not like it, but you know what I mean, whether it's justified. Because it's not about what we like or don't like sometimes.
Right.
But if you don't find that the modification's justified, then as we kind of build this pyramid, when you get to that master plan vote, you're going to say, I move to approve the master plan without the modification to the street section, eliminating that from it. At some point, if you don't approve enough, if there were so many of the other kind of compounding standards that the planning commission didn't support, ultimately the master plan is probably not ready to go, right?
Right. So here's another question I have, a follow-up. So what if there are pieces of the master plan that you could vote for and some that you can't, and it ties back as a result of road adequacy? How does that all work? How does that work?
I think if there's not findings of road adequacy, and we've issued a provisional certificate that's kind of based on an assumption that you will approve those, I would say it would probably be prudent to put the master plan on hold, continue it, and not take an action on it, because when you're finding, right, like you have to, APFO has to be reviewed and approved, as part of this master plan process. We're approving the development concept, but we're also approving basic standards of adequacy at this point. So if we don't have a valid provisional certificate, I would advise the planning commission not to vote on it yet.
Okay, so I think, Monday night, I'm gonna have a lot more questions around the master plan and what could, I guess more of a, creative, outside the box approach that still meets the intent of the LMC. And, because, there's some things that I'll probably discuss Monday night. But yeah, I appreciate you talking to me about that. I have a lot more questions around the master plan and road adequacy and what could happen, what couldn't happen, and so forth. Oh, but I do have a question about, so the roads around that area, the Monocacy Boulevard and I think the Warman Mill Road, I think they parallel both sides of the project. One is to the left and one is to the right. I think Monocacy's on the right, and I think the Warman one is to the left, across from the Lowe's, that shopping center and everything. So who's responsible? Like this is existing conditions. So the people who built those roads were developers, the city. Who built those roads? The developers?
Monocacy, both.
Say that's part one, and part two. That's part one, but part two is: are there any future enhancements by the state around the roads, and any future developments around metro, where there's bus, train? So I guess my question is, are there plans that are coming up that we may not be aware of in the next 5 or 10 years, where the state highway administration is doing some things around that area, and or the city and the state and the county might be working towards some kind of transportation hub or enhancement to that area? Those are, I think, my questions.
This is Cherian. I guess you had a lot of questions and concerns, and as someone who said, sure, go ahead, you meet the provisional certificate, and the staff is recommending to the Planning Commission to support the request, support the provisions under the code. So I don't want to, the APF tests are done under the code, has nothing to do with the LMC itself. So the code is pretty clear in my mind that as to what and cannot do in terms of kind of laying out. And Gabrielle mentioned the level of service D as being a criteria where you sort of said you either fail or pass. So the constraints we assess, and I will get to the last part of the question that you asked. So the reality we look at today and see how things are operating. And typically the traffic study will look at a build out window. And for most, we look at a 3 or 5, depending on most projects. We generally have a time window when that would happen. In this case, we looked at a 10-year window because it's a significant project in terms of density and the build out. So that factors in too. So the constraints that we said we kind of supported the Planning Commission's finding is based on the fact that from a constraint standpoint, we do not see Monocacy Boulevard being widened, or 26 being further widened, or the intersections that we put out as supporting a finding of adequacy as something anyone would consider enhancing the capacity. So those things are built to its maximum at this point. We do not I mean, I hate the word car-centric, but I think I'm going to use it. That's not where we're going to go. We're going to say put everybody in a car and go. So we're trying to switch as much as we can to alternate modes of transportation, how we can support walking, biking, or at the point that you made in terms of transit, and also road connections. I think the other part of in dissipating traffic or not put traffic to a constrained road network, especially here, is to build out the network. And that network is part of it goes through this property, which is the road that will the local road that will connect 26 to Warman's Mill Road. That's a significant connection in terms of providing relief to traffic along Monocacy Boulevard. The completion of Warman's Mill Road from what's the development there?
Market Square.
Yeah, Market Square further up, and all the way to Monocacy. There is a big intervening property that's owned by a private entity through which the road will go. So I think the city will wait rather than eminent domain or putting cities on funds. We wait for that development to come through and construct and complete that road connection to Monocacy. So building out those networks are pretty important. We've been working with State Highway Administration to get an access break on 26 to connect that local road between 26 and Warman's Mill Road. There is one, if you know, generally that area, there is one big undeveloped property next to Walmart that will support that road connection. So these are kind of important. I mean, one example I can tell you is that when Mill Pond Road was finally connected, what we saw within a few months is a shift of about 500 cars during the peak hour from 26 to Mill Pond Road. So the connections are important. I think that helped dissipate traffic to other streets, and the network. The network is therefore important. So going back to the recommendation for finding of adequacy by the Planning Commission was recognize the constraints with which we have the system right now, the roadway network system right now, and the possibility of future connections. And the last piece is what state is doing. Actually, state has a large park and ride lot right off the 15 Monocacy interchange. And the possibility of future transit is all dependent on ridership. So we constantly work with transit, and I mean, that's the primary transportation service through here. The long distance buses mostly serve the MARC station. So it's a chicken and egg thing that the density is what probably bring transit over to this area ultimately. So those are kind of things are in the works. In transit's been pretty responsive. They provide great service, and they're looking for extending their opportunity to serve more people. So I think in that context, I think this project offers an opportunity to address the more immediate needs, which are access to Monocacy. They, signal or roundabout at one of their access points and other connections they're offering. So overall, I think our recommendation on this provisional certificate and the request for or supporting the waiver by the Planning Commission was based on all those facts. And I just want to give you a little bit of background as to why we are where we are from the staff side.
I appreciate that, Cherian. And, probably Monday night, I probably want to look at some of those areas again, just so I'm more visual.
Sure.
But I think the key takeaway that I heard from you was that it's the development that drives further activities or development around the roads and transportation. Is that what I think I heard you say? Is that correct? Or is that how it typically is done? I don't know. Did I hear that correctly?
You're asking the timing?
Yeah, I thought I heard you say that typically development, like, meaning like in having those developments, that's what kind of kicks in more transportation or more roads. Did I hear that correctly? I wasn't sure.
Yes, I mean, I would say that we want to. I think there is that transportation land use balance that we always look for. And I mean, being in the profession, I think it's kind of always said the city or any, I mean, not just city, any entity is always doing the catch up in terms of that transportation land use balance. We want to get ahead. I mean, that's really where from a public sector investment to, are we putting money, which is, I mean, our capital budget, we don't want to strain it and build something to a development that may or may not happen. But I think always catching up, that's really where the concern is. And which isn't terrible, because I think a lot of times we're asking developers to pitch in millions of dollars. I mean, I think rents, end of the day, cost is like $5-6 million they're investing in public infrastructure, which the city probably could never pay for. So, I mean, the same way here, I mean, I know it's kind of the point in the theory here, but it's the same with any development. We ask for them to invest them a lot. And the same time, the city has a responsibility to push for the capital projects, which is again funded through, because we have a development, then we can exact taxes out of whether it's residential or commercial, and which supports a bond or something that we issue over 30 years and build infrastructure. So there's always that process of catching up and getting to a land use transportation balance. And I think at some point the transportation balance was all thought through as constructing more roads and more roads. But I think we've taken an approach that we built to certain capacity. That's part of our comprehensive plan. We're not building anymore these roads. We're going to put capacity in other modes. We're encouraging people to use other modes and making it more friendly for people to use, whether it's bikeways or transit, for that example, or better sidewalks or better connected streets and all those kind of stuff. Our street trees. I mean, I'm more committed to street trees, so make it easy for people to walk or bike. It's rather than on a hot sunny day walk a street. She'll still be able to walk, and I think there's a lot of these things are part of what we want to offer the residents and others as a way to get around.
Thank you, Chairman.
Elaine, at this point, after listening, do you have any comments or questions on?
No, that was a great discussion. And those are the things, as I was reading yesterday, I thought, okay, I need to understand this better. So that was excellent discussion to listen to. Thank you.
Great. All right. Thank you very much. Then let's move on to the 2 gateway cases.
Thank you. So first and foremost, we've structured the agenda to have the annexation amendment first and then the zoning map amendment. The concepts are all very intertwined and not easily separated. Looking at the public comment, looking at, I think, probably a lot of the conversation you want to have, I would recommend we switch the order of the agenda items and put the zoning map amendment before the annexation. I'm sorry. Yes, the zoning map amendment before the annexation amendment, for your consideration, to think about that. I think the majority of the public comment we're going to receive is really about the land use itself, not whether they're contributing XYZ to the to the road improvements, whether they're, the parkland concept is very much tied to the proposed use. I think you're going to get a lot of public comment on the annexation. If you have the annexation amendment first, you're going to get a lot of comment that really is geared about the zoning map amendment. So it might be good to have that conversation about the rezoning first. Get the public comment, have people have that conversation. The other aspect is if the zoning map amendment is not approved, or I'm sorry, we're making a recommendation. If you don't recommend on the zoning and map amendment, it probably will inform your decision about the annexation change. If you don't approve to allow the rezoning for the specific use, I would assume you would not want to also recommend approval of the annexation amendment because it's intended for that use. So consider swapping those, would be a recommendation, if you want to. And I'm sorry, we put it on the agenda that way, and now we're saying, hey, you might want to switch it. If you're inclined to do that, you could do it at the beginning of the meeting. As we talked with the HPO, make a motion to, we're going to reorder the agenda slightly. We're reordering to bring the historic preservation overlay up to discuss the, to hear feedback from the property owner. If we don't decide to continue it, we'll move it back, and then swapping the order of those two things. Any questions on that concept?
I don't. Dorothy, any questions?
So you're saying that, the use will be more of the zoning map, I guess, the use of how it's used will be a determining factor once we vote on it for the rest of the project, correct?
I would think if you are, yes, the
Okay.
changes to the annexation are to accommodate the use they're proposing. So, and I think mostly for the purposes probably of public comment, you're going to have a lot of people get up and want to talk about the cricket stadium, right? And if we say to them, well, this is the annexation amendment, we're really trying to talk about these things, their comment is really so interwoven that it's related to the cricket stadium, right? That's what I think people want to talk about, not the financial contribution to road improvements.
Right.
I agree with that.
It's interesting, the public comment on this, I mean, the perception in the public is that this is like being fast tracked. So people don't really understand what this discussion is about anyway. I mean, so.
Fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the concept of the zoning map amendment and that not being the site design improvement.
Right. I mean, I'm seeing people, I mean, even people who should know better saying, and we don't even have a site plan yet, and we haven't done the APFO yet. I'm like, well, because we're not there yet, because it's really not being fast tracked.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So it just might be easier to have, allow people talk through the merits of what I think most people are interested in, get public comment on that.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't think that should cause any consternation with anyone. The second component I want to talk about just procedurally, there's been a lot of questions, and we'll address this at the meeting on Monday as well. There's been a lot of questions about the process, to Commissioner Strausson's point, that people have said, is this meeting all of the regulations? Are we going through everything? So we've gone through and looked at all of our records to make sure everything is in line as we do with when we're pulling together our agendas. And it was identified that the letter to the NAC coordinators that has to go out at the very onset of the project was sent out a day late. So when you file a development application, site plan, master plan, zoning map amendment, within 8 days of filing, you are to send out a letter to all of your adjoining property owners and all of the NAC coordinators for the NAC you're in, and any NAC coordinators within 500 feet. So if you have different NACs, you send them letters to. The adjoining property owners in this case were all sent out within 8 days. The NAC coordinator letter went out the 9th day. So we realized that at this stage in the process, after the project has gone on for the past, that was November. So since November, we've played out this process. The challenge with having a statute that requires something to happen after something is that, well, if what happens when you don't do it? You know, it's obvious when you have to post a property 15 days before a hearing. Well, if you post your property only 10 days before your hearing, the logical and practical response is, well, you didn't provide enough notice of that hearing because 15 days is the standard, and therefore you're not going to that hearing. We've been engaged in this process the entire time in talking with the legal department. We feel confident that adequate public notice has been provided of the project despite that day late, and that it's in the best interest to continue to proceed with it because we have garnered a lot of public interest and attention on the project, and that there's really no clarity in the law as to what happens when you miss a day. I don't know if Scott wanted to chime in. He popped up.
See that?
I popped up because you said the legal department. I just wanted everybody to know that I was here. I don't have.
Okay.
I can certainly answer any questions about this. I agree with what Gabrielle has said. I certainly think that there has been adequate public notice. We've got a lot of opposition. It would be hard to conceive that somebody that's interested doesn't know about this and know about our hearings. So while you may have a question, or somebody may have a question about, they missed this by a day back in November, I don't believe that's consequential. And as Gabrielle pointed out, this is a really weird way we've drawn it up to say, send this after you've done this, not before you've done that. Right. So there's no real consequence. So, but it may come up, and I think the answer is that it seems like there has been sufficient adequate public notice, and despite this one day oversight, glitch, hiccup, whatever you want to call it, we don't believe that is consequential to the due process that's afforded to not only the developer but also the neighbors. And we don't feel that this has negatively impacted someone's ability to find out about the project. The public the community meeting was held in December. Everything went according to schedule, as far as we can tell. This was the only little glitch that we saw. So, but it's not good to also not tell you guys about this, because someone may bring it up.
So are we going to, is Pam in her presentation of the staff report going to say something about it, or are we not going to address it unless it's brought up by the public?
Well, so that was part of it. So we were struggling with researching this and we were actually trying to make sure that we were correct in our assessment of this up until after the staff reports went out. So we did not make it a part of the staff report. And then we decided not to issue a supplemental staff report and really call this to the attention of everybody. We're certainly not trying to hide it. We have no reason to hide it. Okay. Gabrielle, do you think it's something that Pam will say? Do you think it's something that you could say? Or do we say nothing and be responsive? And I don't know the answer to that.
I think we wanted to make a note of it. I think the intent is to identify it and share our analysis of it.
And I can certainly repeat what I just said, is that, legal department has looked at this. We do not believe it is consequential to the due process, and that there isn't a part of our code that creates a resolution if you were one day late. So I think that's where we are. It might be that somebody says, go back to the beginning of time and start this whole thing over, which I think actually a disservice to the public who is ready to do this. You would get fatigue if it had to start over, and people are like, oh, well, I'm here now, and now I got to wait until it would be January because we have the whole nothing can happen during an election cycle. I think it would serve the public poorly to start this over.
So
we'll say something.
The commission side, we're not going to say anything if you guys don't bring it up.
Well, I'll have Gabrielle say that. Gabrielle can say something, and then if somebody asks that question, I'll repeat this mantra.
Gotcha. Okay.
People will be angry about it. I mean, the people that are detractors want anything that they can do to be a detractor. We don't believe this is a reason to stop this from moving forward. There's other things that you need to consider that are probably more important than this one day glitch.
Yep. All right. Dorothy or Elaine, anything to add or ask?
Just my comment is just being forthcoming and saying it directly, not ignoring it, not trying to make it look like something is wrong. I just think that, shooting from the hip, being transparent is always the best approach, especially if, like Scott said, there's no, detrimental impact, to the overall, process, due process. So that's my only comment. So hopefully that is what we will do, because I'm not comfortable with just hiding or not saying anything. So.
Okay.
Elaine?
I'm good, thanks.
All right.
So we'll jump into the meat of what has changed.
Okay, yep.
Let's talk about the annexation amendment first, since it's on the agenda first currently. So they have supplied a new draft annexation resolution that provides the same paragraph regarding the parkland. Remember, we started with the 16 acres of publicly accessible parkland in the current resolution. There was conversation about limiting it to 6, and then the concept has evolved to be a dedication, or no, I'm sorry, not a dedication of land, not a fee simple dedication, but a public amenity space that's created with access for the public. As part of that, the change that you'll see in the resolution is related to the monetary contribution that was required under the old resolution for infrastructure road improvements. That was $500,000. The applicant's proposing a $1.5 million improvement with $500,000 that would be paid at the time of the approval of the zoning map amendment, or April 22nd, 2026, whichever occurs later. The balance of it would be paid, sorry, I'm just kind of scrolling between things, based on a pro rata unit basis for the residential and non-residential, if residential is approved. The staff recommendation on that does differ. Sorry, between reports. We have the updates for the meeting, by the way, in text boxes that say July update. So with regards to the infrastructure contribution, we're supportive of that 1.5 million being the necessary amount. However, we would recommend that those dollars not be double counted or credited towards any improvements they have to make under APFO testing. So if under APFO they have to do $500,000 worth of improvements, that would be in addition to the 1.5 million that they would provide for us to make regional transportation improvements or contributions towards other projects. We also recommend that the $500,000 be paid as they're proposing within 30 days of the council's rezoning, but that the second payment of the $1 million not be held out and be paid within 2 years of that $500,000 payment. With regards to the parkland question, they are proposing, as I said, that they will create land area that's publicly accessible. They'll amenitize it. They're also asking for credit towards any potential future residential if it's rezoned, any requirements they would have as a result of that, or we would recommend that not be applied that way. So if in the future they come in and ask for a rezoning of the remaining portion of the property, build residential units, that residential impact will be evaluated under the existing regulations at that time on its own basis, and no recognition of this parkland either towards a land amount they may owe or park facilities impact. We would not credit any of that. So similar to the road concept, in addition to and not balancing of And then the other recommendation is that paragraph 7B, which talks about the parkland improvements, specifically state that the Monocacy River Trail, the shared use path, would be at least 10 feet wide and be provided along the river between 144 and I-70. So that be called out specifically.
Hey, Gabrielle, if I can pitch in for it, I mean, because I think this project offers a good contrast with what Frederick Health Village is, because this is out here and really look at it as infrastructure is negative in a way sense. So the $1.5 million we're asking for is for studying an interchange, one constructed at least. We want to have a shovel-ready project possible from a design standpoint for MDOT to look at a new interchange or relocating one of the existing off-ramp of I-70. So, I mean, those are the kind of stuff. I mean, and so we're very careful in where we demand for infrastructure. And we also said, no, you cannot get any credit for other frontage improvements that state will more likely require, we might even require. So, yeah, I think I hope you see a little bit of contrast in how we structure these transportation road adequacy requirements.
That was all we had on the annexation amendment.
Okay.
Keep in mind, once again, you guys are making a recommendation to the council on whether to amend the annexation resolution, how to amend it.
And then is there anything new about the zoning map amendment?
Yes, so the zoning map amendment, the applicant has provided draft conditions of rezoning. So when we're rezoning to institutional or any other conditional rezoning, we can, the planning commission can recommend, the board can attach conditions, essentially any conditions that it deems necessary to protect, preserve, support the land being rezoned or impacts on adjoining properties. So the conditions that the applicant has put forth are to address the ultimate transportation plans and other impacts of the proposed Cricket Stadium Special Event Center. They have two conditions they've drafted. One stating that any event of more than 10,000 people at one time has to apply for a large private event permit in accordance with the section of the city code. So we already have a structure that allows a property owner to hold a large special event, a once in a season occasion where you are going to have a large event. The permit in the code applies to events over 2,000 people. So if I were just owned a big piece of property and I decided I wanted to have a summer festival, I apply for this permit if I expect to have over 2,000 people. And that section of the code establishes a process whereby the mayor, through his designee, which is primarily the Department of Public Works, looks at how the event's going to be managed, right? It's everything from, do you need additional public work services, or you need trash collection? Are we dragging out Jersey barriers? Who's doing security? Who's paying for security? How are you parking? All of those things, a big event, a plan for how the event is managed. So we have that structure in the code. So they're saying, if we have an event over 10,000 people, we're going to use that structure in your code. That provision also gives the mayor, through his designee or her designee, a lot of latitude in approving the permit ultimately, right? There's all sorts of nice language that, if we think it's going to be too much, if it's going to cause adverse impacts, we can deny that permit. The second provision is that they are saying that they are going to develop an events management plan for events that would be over 1,500 people. And then in that events management plan and in the draft condition, they're outlining the content of what would be in that events management plan. So I would recommend look closely over those factors, but it's talking about security, staffing, parking, on and off-site accommodations, where access points will be, where parking will be banned, and similar to that concept in our code. Our recommendation is varied from what they're proposing. Our recommendation is essentially that for any event held at this facility, prior to unconditional approval of the site plan, that they will develop a standardized event management plan for any event. It may be something that's tiered towards the population they expect. If it's an event under 500 people, if an event's between 500 and 1,000 people, this is how we're handling traffic or noise or whatever it is. If it's an event, 1,500, 5,000, you get the picture. And that would be approved similar to how that large event permit is approved administratively. Sorry, lost my place. We're recommending that, and then we proposed what we would want to see in that events management plan, that it be prepared in consultation with all applicable stakeholders, the city, the county, Maryland Department of Transportation, State Highway Administration, any other entity as deemed appropriate by the Director of Public Works. Once again, approved prior to unconditional use, that it always has to remain in effect, that they can't operate the facility if they don't have a events management plan in effect. If a arrangement is no longer viable, they have to do a revision, that revision would be subject to the same approval process. If they have a contractual arrangement to use offsite parking at location X and that falls no longer an option, then before they would be able to hold anything, they need to do a revision to it, and we need to go through the process of evaluating it, as we did the same in the first case. A specific condition that vehicles associated with the event may not be parked on property at any time may not park at any time on local residential streets or properties in the state highway park and ride lot unless that's expressly approved by them. And then just a standard provision that all activity would have to comply with Chapter 15 of the city code, which is our noise ordinance. So those are our recommendations. They vary slightly from the draft conditions. In terms of new information in the report, we did follow up on some questions and discussion items that were from the first hearing. So you'll see those in the text boxes. One of the issues that you may have seen come up in public comment is the relationship to the airport and how it does or does not how is or is not compatible with the use of the airport. So we provided some additional information that we received from our airport manager on that. I think that is the bulk of the new information.
Okay.
We do have additional public comment that was provided after the first meeting. And one of the things I wanted to confirm with you is the best way I anticipate that we'll receive public comment between now and the hearing. We can, I don't know what's preferable for everyone, but we can, we can send it as we receive it, or we can kind of bunch it and send it on Monday morning, on Monday afternoon, and then once again before we're getting ready to convene.
Right. Well, I'll let the other two chime in too, but my preference is send it as you receive it, just because I don't want to wait until Monday morning. I mean, if you get things before then, but they can chime in. The only thing I wanted to ask is, can you also send us as soon as possible the city code about that events application, just so we can be familiar with that?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. I think I may have linked it in the document on the PDF, but I will I'll generate a separate PDF and email that out. I can download it from the city code and save it as a PDF and we'll send it.
Yeah, either that or just a link to the section of the city code that's relevant. Yeah. So those are my things. Elaine, anything else you want to add or have questions?
Yeah, no, I agree with sending any public comment as it comes in. I know I have a pretty heavy weekend and Monday. So if I can, that way I can keep up with things as they come in.
Okay, great. Dorothy?
The same thing as they come in. Monday morning, I probably won't be reading anything. I do have some questions. I don't know, is that acceptable? Is it okay? Jones?
Oh, yeah. Yep, go ahead.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I was just curious, what is the lowest threshold of when that agreement would kick in? Like, what's the lowest number of people is my question.
So our recommendation is that they have it for any use of the facility, right? That, I mean, if you're having an event with 5 people or 200 people, I would anticipate the facility. There's going to be some practical lower limit, right? They're not going to use it for 2 or 3 people being there. So our recommendation, what we were kind of envisioning was, an event between, 1 and 300 people, that they're going to have to draw some logical, once they start to shape the site and understand what it can carry and what's going to need to be offsite and offsite, or onsite and offsite, to shape that threshold. But our recommendation is that the use of the facility is tied to an events management plan that is stratified to reflect the capacities that it might be used for, recognizing that, in their justification statement, it does say the max capacity could be 25,000 people. That they've said that may be a, once in a blue moon event. It's a, if the international cricket event, chose this location to have, okay, well, what threshold up to that is going to, over 50,000, excuse me, over 5,000 people, is going to probably have a different demand in terms of where the offsite parking is, what they're going to do for traffic control, all of those things, than 200 people. So our recommendation is that as they start to figure out the carrying capacity of that site and what needs to be, how it needs to function, that they stratify that and it apply all the time.
So, Gabrielle, is there a maximum number where it's just not going to work? So, I mean, when I think about, any event, let's just say if somebody wants to have an event and it's going to have 85,000 people, as an example. So what is the city's plan? Like, because we're talking about traffic, we're talking about parking, all kinds of stuff. Like, it could be a gridlock, the city could shut down. So, I mean, like, I'm just curious, 85,000 people, like, what's the plan? Like, when does the city say, no bueno?
So they've set a maximum expectancy of 25,000, and moving forward, without having the details of the events management plan, it's hard to say, well, what could you do to serve the maximum amount of people, and when does it become obviously not viable because it's creating adverse impacts and you just legitimately can't handle it? I think there are kind of 2 approaches to that. Either as a condition of rezoning, the planning commission and the council could recommend and the council could approve a maximum capacity. They've said it's 25,000. We don't even want you to try to figure out how you might serve 30,000. That's it. Right. Cut off. That's all. That could be a condition. So that would be one approach. The other approach is really through the implementation of the concept of the event management plan, that at some point there's going to be a number that you can't that you can't move in and out around the site successfully. And then through that events management plan, under our recommendation, you would set those caps, right?
Mm-hmm. And is there going to be like some kind of signage out there that speaks to, if you are planning on having an event here, here's who you need to contact? And is there some kind of like, I mean, not that you would know this, and maybe I could ask this tomorrow, Monday night, like, that disallows Dorothy from entering and having a concert of maybe 900 or 600 people because it's vacant and not available. We're just going to go in here and do this little concert right here. I mean, is there, like, how do you enforce somebody not saying, hey, I think I could have something over here, without having to go through the city, without having to contact these people? It's open. There's no locks on here. There's just, open field. We could do this.
I mean, it's going to be a privately held and maintained facility. The the exact wording of if the council and the planning commission is all supportive of this concept of the events management plan, the actual wording, the language of that document should ensure that the property owner, the holder of this facility, is responsible for adhering to this events management plan, right? This is the condition on the use of the land. It's their job to uphold it. I would hope that as a private property owner who knows that they have obligations, that they're, doing their due diligence to make sure that somebody's not unlawfully just moving in and having an event. Obviously that would be like a trespassing issue if, somebody's using someone's private property. I'm sure these folks are looking to have their property leased for special events and collecting fees for that. So I think the checks and balances would be there to prevent someone from just kind of showing up and having a party.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. If there's nothing else, then we can move on to the last item on the agenda, which is the Scotty's Bus Lane zoning map amendment.
Bus Lane, yes. So this is the youth center. We had a great presentation from the Osterman Family Foundation. It is the city's property. They're acting as our agent in this application. The only thing new, because we don't have a recommendation at this point, because it's the first of 2 hearings, the only thing new was the presentation materials that they provided, and that contains, they had shown the kind of site layout and the floor plan of the space at the workshop that you hadn't previously had in your packet. So that is all here for you now.
Great. Any questions or comments on this one?
Nope.
Nope.
All right, sounds good. Is there anything else non-case related that we need to talk about before we go?
Yeah.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah, I do, but
Gabrielle first.
Yeah.
Okay. Mine will be real quick. I just wanted to express my appreciation and recognition of the burden that it causes when we are short planning commission members, and the responsibility that everyone takes on. We're experiencing it even with our staff and missing staff. The responsibility gets spread around, and I've recognized that, and just wanted to let you know that we have had 2 people express interest in being on the planning commission. We have 1 interview scheduled. We are working to schedule the second interview. So we are doing what we can to ease that burden on you guys. And I just wanted to express my appreciation because I feel for you and with you.
Great, thank you. Dorothy?
Well, I mean, Gabrielle is clairvoyant because that's exactly what I was going to say. So she's psychic, and she just beat me to the punch.
Oh,
Yeah.
I am. We continue to look for ways to drum up our volunteers. I will let you know that we all talk about it. Zach Kirchner, our director of public works, he even offered to get up at the Keys Stadium and stand on the top of the what do you call it, where do they sit when they're waiting to play the game? The players, the dugout. He was going to stand on the top of the dugout and call for volunteers for city planning commissions and everything. It is something everybody at all levels here are very committed to, and recognize that it's not a good thing to not have these roles filled. So we're looking for some creative ways, maybe having Zach dress up like Coyote and screaming out for volunteers at the Keys games. So.
That would have been great.
That would be interesting. Yeah. Elena, do you have anything to add?
No, I would say that's great news. I was going to ask that question, and like Dorothy said, you got right to it, Gabrielle. So that's wonderful.
No, I do. I feel for you.
Right. Well, then if there's nothing else, and this is like one of the longest pre-planning meetings we've had in ages, and I'm going to head on back home, and we'll see you guys all on Monday evening.
All right.
Take care. Monday. Have a good weekend. Stay cool.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah.